we have three minds that we work with. We have our emotional mind, which is stores all of our emotions. And I usually think of it as colors in my brain. So that's the red brain. Then we have the rational side, which is all about our facts and statistics. And that's our blue side. We want to use both of those at the same time. So you think of a Venn diagram, you have that overlap in the middle, which is purple, because we did the blue and the red. And that is the wise mind. So I usually, with my clients I work with, let's try to use a wise mind approach to these type of situations. So I'm very angry because I've been kind of pushed aside by my doctors. And I know facts show that I've been having this pain for 6 months, for example, 16 years for some, unfortunately. And to bring all that together in the wise mind fashion is, hey, I'm getting frustrated at the process of this. So I'm still validating and noticing what my emotion is. However, I'm not letting it be the wheels of this cart.
Hi, I'm Allie, and I'm living chronic faith. Thanks for stopping by, and welcome to the podcast. The name says it all. I believe that our faith has to be as chronic as our symptoms, and this podcast is a safe space for us to explore meaningful ways to live our lives according to that faith. It's my prayer that after this episode, you will be more encouraged, more educated, and more equipped to live out your chronic faith. Hello and welcome to the Living Chronic Faith podcast. I'm Allie, and I am so excited that you're here. We are going to have the most amazing conversation today. As you know, it is the month of May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month, but also it's the month that we celebrate mothers. And today we have an incredible guest who is both a mental health professional as well as a mother. And we're going to get into a little bit of that. But allow me to introduce to you Tiana Beard. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist and a mom of an amazing little boy who she's going to share a little bit more about. Tiana, welcome. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Oh my goodness, I'm excited just for you to share your story and share your experiences and even some of your background. We have talked a lot about caregivers in this community and on this channel. And we've talked a lot about caring for spouses. But the dynamic is a little bit different when you're providing care for a child, especially a minor child who happens to be mostly nonverbal. Can you tell us a little bit about what the journey has been like for you so far?
Yes. Well, True is 3 years old. So I'm 3 years into this motherhood. And I will say that I have grown so much more respect for women in that mother role, rather they are adopted children or birth children themselves, because it's not an easy feat, and every child is different. So for me, I'll say I came into motherhood having this idea of what I thought being a mother was going to be like. Especially, I'm the youngest of three, so I have two older brothers. So, and we have a significant age difference. My brothers are 13 and 9 years older than me. So they had children when I was still in high school. So I have 10 nieces and nephews that I've been really active in their lives. So I'm like, okay, this is going to be super easy. I kind of got this down. However, when the buck stops with you, I've recognized that I'll say motherhood came with a lot more stresses than I thought. I will say another factor that hit me differently than I expected is doing it as a single mother. I, was married, and I was married for 4.5 years before True was conceived. So I had this mindset of like, okay, I want to make sure that I get married. And I got married at 23, making sure that I had this time to enjoy my husband before we brought children into the picture, so that we can have this really strong sense of family to raise our children in. And then for parenthood to kind of happen like this for me, I will say it stripped me to the bones. And that is really where my faith was increased. throughout this process. So faith it has been like the overarching theme in my journey of motherhood for sure, I'd say.
Wow. Tell me a little bit more about that. How has your faith played into the motherhood role and all the different factors that you've kind of mentioned?
Yeah. Well, I am someone who was diagnosed with PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. So, any of the sisters out there who are watching this, I was diagnosed at 11 years old.
Mm,
So, all of my, my young life, my teenage life, my early adulthood, I thought that it would be really hard for me to conceive, almost impossible for me to bear children. Really didn't think that it could be in my cards. I loved kids, but even after being married for a number of years, it didn't happen. So I kind of was just like, all right, I'm just gonna be the fun auntie. I'm fine with that. And again, just the way that things happened, literally weeks after the decision, like, okay, this marriage thing isn't working, we have to get a divorce. Weeks after that, finding out that I'm 6 weeks pregnant, it was just like, Lord, what do you why would you bless my womb now? Like, none of this makes sense. And then, okay, well, maybe this means that we are supposed to stay together. And then that not happening is just like, it was a lot of time I was angry with God. I was also pregnant during 2020. So we're in the thick of COVID. I'm not able to really go to church or be around friends or get that support that I really wanted. So here I am, really in this process of cultivating and growing this baby who is going to keep me bonded to this person who I am still in the same process trying to separate from
mm,
mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, and having to do it in a cocoon. The only person I had to turn to was God, even with my anger, and saying, I do not understand this. This makes no sense. Why me? I did everything right. I got married. I tried to do everything right. What do you mean I'm going to be a single mom? What do you mean, this is going on? And know that, God, I don't understand this. And I'm angry right now. And I don't want to read my word, but I do know that you won't leave me here. So that's all I literally had to hold on to.
that's such a powerful thing. And I appreciate you sharing so transparently about the emotional state. We see that a lot with people who are in different challenging situations. Um, a lot of people who, watch this channel are navigating chronic illness. And there is that feeling sometimes of anger.
Mhm.
Like, why would you take away my ability to do the things that I loved or the things that I used to make a living? Why would you allow this to, cause a rift in my relationships or whatever the situation is? There's anger to deal with. And I love that you share that you turn to God with that anger. We sometimes feel like we have to protect him.
Mhm.
We have to hide that from him. And the truth is that he knows our emotions anyway,
Yeah.
and that he invites us to come to him with everything.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so that's absolutely beautiful. So interesting, so many interesting things that you shared about your story and the timing of it all. You said you've always loved kids and you have 10 nieces and nephews. And it's very clear that you love kids from your background.
Yeah.
It's so colorful and cheerful. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Yes. So the month that we're recording this is April. So April is Autism Awareness Month, and True was diagnosed with autism back in February of 2023.
Mhm.
So again, as we talk about transitions in faith, now at this point, February 2023, it's True and I. His dad hadn't been in the picture, hadn't visited, had been absent now for months. And it was just he and I living in Vegas. We're from California. I was living in Vegas at that point. And I'm noticing that my baby is no longer really responding to his name.
Mm.
He's not saying the few words that he was saying. He already had a low vocabulary, but even those few words that he was saying, he's not saying as much. and I'm wondering what's going on with my kiddo.
Hmm.
So go through all of the assessments. And of course, yes, he's diagnosed with autism. So this background is just to highlight and bring attention to autism and some of those early signs, also early intervention, and just also just neurodiversity. We are all out here in our own uniqueness. And for some, like those are on the spectrum, like True, that may look like what we may consider maybe rude things where they're not responding. And it's like, I told you to do something, but I'm not. Or, I'm calling your name, you're not coming. What's going on? Why is my kid not doing what I'm asking them to do? Or why aren't they acting like the other kids? They're not social. They're not playing with other kids. What's going on? That's just the way he is. He likes to be by himself. Um, and just loving him right where he is. So that's what the hands are for.
I love that. And thank you for sharing that with us and helping us to be a little bit more aware. I love that you talked about loving him right where he is. That is so key in every relationship, right? That he's not broken,
Hmm.
so he doesn't need to be fixed.
Hmm.
He is an entire person loved by God and created lovingly by God as he is. Um, and so I love that you share that. And I think that there are adults who are in different places in terms of neurodiversity. And it can be very challenging. People can feel very judged,
Hmm.
right, for being different.
Yeah.
There are some of us who are just different just because we're different.
Hmm.
And I think that the differentness is what we have in common.
Right. Yeah.
God made us all unique. And I just pray that those who are watching or listening to this can embrace that uniqueness with the understanding that God sees you, he loves you, and he made you like you are.
Hmm.
And this is the same way that you love your son right where he is. I pray that we grow to a place where we can love ourselves and each other right where we are without
Yeah.
a need to fix or change anybody.
Hmm. Hmm. Because there's nothing that needs to be fixed. I think about the greatness of God and how we are created in his likeness and how vast and big, immeasurable God is. Of course, there
Mhm.
have to be variety in something that is supposed to reflect his image, right? And
Exactly.
in our in mankind, humankind, we can even say American society's mind frame that's so limited,
Mhm.
right and wrong. This is how everything is supposed to be. Of course, then you'll run into like, oh, something's off. But in God's eyes, we all have been birthed with a purpose that is beautiful and that is full,
Mhm.
right where we are with what we have.
Yes. You said something that's very key. Recognizing that something is different doesn't necessarily mean that it's wrong. Doesn't mean that it needs to be fixed, but it may need to be addressed differently.
Hmm.
Or you
Hmm.
may need to adjust your approach. You know, you don't have the same conversation with a 3 year old that you would have with a 30-year old. We see that as being normal.
Yes.
But when it's a different conversation with this 3 year old versus that 3 year old, then we start talking about what's right and wrong. And I think it's still just different.
Hmm.
And if we approach it that way, we'll get a lot farther.
I agree with
Um,
you.
yeah. So you mentioned that True stopped using some of the words that he had been using. And it makes me think about communication and how vital that is to caregiving, to any relationship anyway. But raising a child, communication is a big part of that. What are some of the things that you do to help empower him to express himself and even to communicate his wants and needs?
Thank you for asking that. So for True, and really anybody I'm in relationship with, I'm looking at how do they communicate first. Because I recognize that even if we're speaking the same language, raised in the same place, the way in which I say something or roll my eyes might mean something completely different than when you do it. So paying attention to him and seeing his little cues. So yes, True is not using words, but there might be a certain hum that he uses, or if he's more like, I know that's something. Or like my kid, like many other parents might recognize when your kid is quiet, that means run and go check on them, right? They're into something. So that still is the same, right? There's whines, just like you can kind of figure out the cries or certain things. True's great at hand leading. He will come get your hand. He'll take you exactly to what he wants. He'll tell you, come pick me up, pick me up. He'll put your hands around his little waist, like, pick me up. So it's just learning how he communicates and saying, oh, is that what you need? You want me to pick you up? Okay. And we're doing great now with images, even. There's a system called PEX, which is Picture Exchange Communication System. So using pictures, he has this binder that's full of different things that he can request, and people too, like his family, that he can go through, and he'll get one of those pictures and bring it to me, and I'll know exactly what he wants. He wants the grapes. Okay, he wants to watch Spider-Man, for example. He'll give me that exact thing. So there are ways around it for sure.
That must be so validating, in a society where people expect you to communicate one way and one way only,
Yeah.
to be recognized and seen,
Mhm.
and to have your desires and needs acknowledged and met. That's so powerful.
Yeah.
And I think that that's an important thing for us to appreciate in each other,
Yeah.
that we don't all communicate the same way. We all come from different places. So if you think about someone who comes from Brooklyn versus someone who comes from LA, their slang is going to be different. And
Yes.
so they may say one thing and it means something totally different in the same country,
Hmm.
right? And so from one person to the next, we have to be mindful that our backgrounds are different, our experiences are different. And that's so powerful. I love that that he has all these different ways to communicate, even if they're not the what we would consider conventional,
Yes.
but they work for him.
Hmm.
And he gets to grow up knowing that he is cared for and that he is supported and that he can be understood. Oh, that gives me chills. It makes me so happy just
Yeah.
to know that that's even a part of his childhood.
Mhm.
It can be challenging enough to advocate for yourself as you're dealing with your own needs. But when you're dealing with appointments and insurance and figuring out different options and everything for someone else, what has the experience been like advocating for your son and for his care?
Advocating for True has made me use my voice differently. Whereas for myself, especially when it comes to the medical system, I was like, all right, it's cool. I'll just figure out how to deal with my own stuff, or kind of just shied away from it. However, now having to advocate for my son, it has made me embody a different type of confidence
Mm,
and like a push through, push forward type of attitude instead of this shy away, whatever, kind of brush it off. It's made advocacy for medical support even more a priority for me. And knowing that, for example, my godbrother, who was 23 years old, healthy African American man, went to the ER, and he was neurotypical. He wasn't on the autism spectrum.
mhm.
However, he went to the ER 2 nights in a row complaining of chest pain. But because he's an athlete, he's usually healthy. They're like, oh, you're probably just stressed. You might have just pulled a muscle, and sent them home both nights, and ended up having a heart attack and passing away. Not or feeling like in my community, especially, again, we have a Black boy. Now I'm raising one. So it hit home. That's my god brother. I'm thinking about my son of like, no, you need to take them seriously. Take us seriously. And I'm reminded of even during my pregnancy and just researching what I needed to do to make sure I stayed healthy. Again, during the time of COVID, and I only had my phone anyways to do all of this research. But looking at the Black maternal death rate of just, and making sure I spoke to that and wrote it on my papers that this was a concern of mine. And I want to make sure that my care team is on top of my numbers and make sure that I'm okay and my baby is okay at all times. And I want to be taken seriously if I'm complaining about pain or if I have a question that needs to be answered. It made me take myself more seriously. And most definitely for my son, who cannot with verbally just yet advocate for himself. It makes me go even 10 times harder for him.
Hmm. So you are a mental health care provider as well as a patient. So you kind of see that conversation from both sides.
Mhm.
What are some of the things, or how do we express those concerns in a way that we can be heard? What is an approach that might be helpful to people?
Thank you for asking.
Mhm.
One way that I like talking about it is we have three minds that we work with. We have our emotional mind, which is stores all of our emotions, and I usually think of it as colors in my brain. So that's the red brain. Then we have the rational side, which is all about our facts and statistics, and that's our blue side. Um, we want to use both of those at the same time. So you think of a Venn diagram, you have that overlap in the middle, which is purple, because we did the blue and the red, and that is the wise mind. So I usually, with my clients I work with, let's try to use a wise mind approach to these type of situations. So I'm very angry because I've been kind of pushed aside by my doctors. And I know facts show that I've been having this pain for 6 months, for example, 16 years for some, unfortunately. Um, and to bring all that together in the wise mind fashion is, hey, I'm getting frustrated at the process of this. So I'm still validating and
Mhm.
noticing what my emotion is. However, I'm not letting it be the wheels of this cart. And I think for sometimes we feel like we're supposed to stuff away or push or avoid our emotions completely. And what happens is we usually repress our emotions. Repressed emotions are just like taking a coin and putting them into a bag. If we never go back and take those coins out of the bag, it's going to get full. And it's going to only take one more coin before all of that just explodes, which usually happens. So, this wise mind approach that we can use, I still get to validate my emotion, but it doesn't have this explosive effect to it. So, I'm really frustrated with this because I feel like I'm not being heard. And the fact is, I'm hurt. I need help. And you on my support team, I'm looking to you to help me. I need a solution to this issue and keep going with that. They can't help you, say, refer me to someone else and continue to go up that line. I know it sucks to have to do that as a client, and I've had to do it even for myself personally, where going through I think 5 doctors I ended up going through just to get some help other than, oh, go lose weight. I've been
Mhm.
chubby my whole life, never had this problem. There's something else that has to be going on, right? So that is a way that I found really helpful to keep it all together and in sync so you don't feel like you're losing control, but also to be able to get your point across for sure.
I love that wise mind approach. I think it's so key because you're right. Often we pick one or the other, or sometimes we don't pick. We allow the emotions to choose for us. Um, and sometimes people are hesitant to even acknowledge, much less express, the anger or the disappointment or the hurt or whatever that is. And it's important to communicate that and to even allow yourself to experience that fully and process it because it is part of the journey. And sometimes I have gotten the best results when I have communicated, this is not okay.
Mhm.
You know, I've heard people say many times you teach people how to treat you by what you accept, what treatment you accept. And sometimes when you say, this is not acceptable, it kind of gets their attention and they say, oh, there's another option that we need to consider.
Mhm.
Because there is always a way. Where there's a will, there's a way. I believe that. I don't believe that there's anything that's impossible or anything that's out of reach. We just got to find the right approach.
Right.
So I love that you shared combining the intellectual, the factual with the emotional
Mhm.
into that purple zone
Mhm.
and finding solution there, but not just finding that within ourselves, but communicating that, effectively so that other people can kind of be part of that resolution process with us. That's
Yeah.
great. I love that purple zone. That's awesome. And purple happens to be my favorite color. So
Oh, perfect.
I like to think that I have a purple mind.
Yeah. And I would like to add also, we
Mhm.
set those boundaries. And I think, especially from the Christian faith, being a believer, we sometimes shy away from saying no, or
Mm,
sometimes we shy away from labeling those emotions that are not joy and happiness, right? We don't want to say that we're angry or that we're frustrated or sad or fearful, just because as a Christian, we're not supposed to have those negative emotions. However, we are emotional beings. We were created with these emotions for a reason. And I love that on Wednesdays, and I'll invite you all on Wednesdays on Facebook. Abundant Grace Fellowship Ministries is my church. And on Wednesdays at noon Pacific Standard Time, we do a lunch and learn segment where I go through some of these mental health topics from a biblical standpoint. So we're talking about what importance do emotions have, or do they have a place? What does God say about them? We're talking about how to set boundaries from a biblical perspective.
mm,
We're talking about how to do conflict resolution within your family, with your spouse, at work. We're talking about how to effectively communicate. And I just really enjoy that segment. And I'm happy. I took a little break just to make sure that True got set up with his services, but now he's set up and he's in school. God be praised. So we're going to be that segment is now back on weekly. So come out.
that is so exciting. Tell us again how we can find that.
Yes, it's on Facebook Live, Abundant Grace Fellowship Ministries. It's the name of the church.
Amazing. What a great resource that is. And I love that you're approaching it from a biblical perspective. There's so many emotions that we do kind of hide from.
Mhm.
And a lot of it has been because we've been taught, oh, Christians don't act like this.
Mhm.
Right? Christians don't think like that. But our greatest example is Jesus, and he had all the emotions
Mhm.
and expressed them.
Mhm.
I think about the fact that when he went to see Lazarus, you know, he told the disciples on the way there, Lazarus is sleeping. We're going to go wake him up.
Mhm.
He knew before he even got into the vicinity what the circumstance was. He knew what he was about to do, and he still allowed himself a moment to grieve.
Yeah.
And I think that that is, again, him setting an example for us. He didn't have to be sad. He knew Lazarus was going to be alive in a minute.
Mhm.
But I think the bigger lesson there is it's okay for us to grieve
Mhm.
and to acknowledge loss. It's okay when something is not going as it should to be frustrated. Maybe we're not all going to turn over a table,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
but he demonstrated for us these emotions have a place. He got frustrated with the disciples. Oh, ye of little faith, how long have you been with me and you still don't understand who I am and what this is all about? He felt all of that. And he gave us this blueprint that it is so important to process and acknowledge those emotions. That's part of healthy life. And I would say even healthy Christianity.
Yes.
And I love that you bring that out. And I'm excited about this lunch and learn and how many people are going to be so positively impacted just by having those things validated through scripture
Mhm.
so
Yes.
that we don't have to walk around trying to be half humans, right? And half robot.
You're right. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I
So,
literally remember praying, like, God, why didn't you make me a robot? That's so funny you say have
mm,
robots. If I was a robot, things would be so much easier. I was literally in undergrad. Like, if you would have just made me a robot and I didn't have these emotions, it would be so much easier. This is
mm-hmm,
literally throughout my process of becoming a therapist. This is my thought of just like, emotions are crazy, but
mm-hmm.
you know, and they are. And that's our job, and I say this to my clients, our job is not to forget our emotions or to get away from them. It's to learn how to notice what their flags.
Yes.
They're to give us information about what's going on. And how we navigate that is what therapy is about. How do we navigate these things that are coming up?
Yeah.
So thank you.
I think that's so true. Um, all of our emotions have assignments
Mm,
and they're
yeah.
there to do something. Even fear. Fear is, and I like to think of fear as a gift
Mm,
when it's used properly,
yeah.
right? It's to alert us to something. Fear is what makes us not put our hand on the stove when we know it's hot. Fear is that thing that warns us and says, hey, maybe don't go down that dark alley.
Yeah.
It has an assignment. It's the spirit of fear that gets us into some areas where we don't want to be. And we have to really be aware of that and be mindful of that and stay in relationship with God so that He can lead us in and out of those places where we need to, navigate, as you say. I love that word,
Mhm.
navigate. Speaking of navigating, I want to talk a little bit about overwhelm,
Mhm.
especially as it pertains to momming. But in general, life is overwhelming sometimes. And that's not always something that we want to acknowledge or that we like to acknowledge, but it's just true. We all get to a place sometimes where things just pile up. We have all these responsibilities and a little bit of time or a little bit of energy, and it can be a lot. How do you manage overwhelm?
Yes. Overwhelm can be, it can feel like a mountain. And I've experienced that in my personal life. Throughout the time of getting True assessed, he was home with me every day for a year and 5 months. Now, this is while I'm still working 4 days a week at that point, seeing clients, still doing all the stuff, making the meals, washing clothes, writing notes, still in ministry, trying to go to Bible study, prayer meeting, all of the things where I just felt my days just blurred one to another. I didn't really know what was going on and just felt really burnt out. And one thing that really helped me was something I say to my clients a lot is if you don't have a lot of time, if you feel like self-care is a privilege, which, sometimes when we hear self-care, we think of the bubble baths and the massages and the go get my hair washed, which is amazing, right? But sometimes we don't have the finances, the time, the opportunity to do that. So a little uh, model that I made up is treat yourself like a house plant. That
Mm,
is what you do at the bare minimum on a daily basis. Just treat yourself like a house plant. That is what self-care is. So what does a house plant need to survive? Need some fresh air, need some water, needs nutritious soil. But for us, that's good food, right? And so I said water, fresh air, good food, and you want to, and some sunshine. You want to make sure that you can get that for yourself every day. Even if you can't go outside, open the window. Just put your face as close as you can to the window. And if you only do that for 2 minutes, it's okay. You did it for yourself. Just breathe. Take that 2 minutes. You feel like, okay, I can't do 2 minutes, 20 seconds. Just show up for yourself, whatever little moment that is. There was another sacrifice that I learned to make during that season. I'm waking up earlier so I could have that just hour buffer before True woke up. And yes, sometimes he woke up because he didn't feel me in the bed. He's a co-sleeper. And but however, there were multiple days where I was able to get up, have a quick workout, and get a cup of coffee in before he woke up. And I'll say, when I just had that moment to myself in the morning of just like, I'm someone other than mom, other than therapist
mm,
right now. I get to be something outside of my role. I get to just be versus do anything. That is huge for me. And I'll say, even in this process of being a mom, I got to find something to do. There's 1,000 things to do. I can always find something to do, whether if it's to wash the clothes, wash a dish, figure out what to cook, whatever it is, I can always find something to do. But the being part, being present piece became even more challenging when I have a little one now to take care of. So being really intentional about that be time for sure helps with the
That is
overwhelm.
so good.
Yeah.
Wow. I love the houseplant analogy. And I think that it's so basic that it's brilliant, because how easy is it to forget to drink our water? I can tell you many times I have realized I'm a little dehydrated because I got so focused on a task that I forgot to drink the water.
Mhm.
There are times when you just need to go and breathe fresh
Mhm.
air or go and look at something different. The nutritious soil is so good because how easy is it to forget to eat or to grab whatever is convenient. I love that houseplant model. I think that's brilliant. And
Yeah.
it's just so honest.
Mhm.
And I think that that's what it does. It causes us to have to be honest with ourselves. These are things that I need, and it's okay that I need them.
Mhm.
I also love that you said getting up an hour early gave you time to be somebody other than your roles. It gave you time to touch base with you. And so many times, what I have seen with people, particularly people who live with chronic diagnoses, but people in general, we have a tendency to attach our identity with our activity. And sometimes when our abilities change and our activities change, the identity goes along with it. And so now we have this identity crisis
Mhm.
because we don't really remember who we were before that role. And so we think that role is all we are.
Mhm.
And so I love that you make it a priority to stay in touch with who Tiana is before she's a mom, before she's a teacher, before she's a therapist, before she's any of these roles. Who are you?
Mhm.
And spending time with God and allowing Him to pour that back into you because the world can tell you that you're not enough
Yeah.
or that you're doing it wrong or that somebody else is doing it better. And we really need to give God His time to pour truth back into us through His word, through worship, through just being still. It's so powerful. So thank you for sharing that. And I just pray that we will all see ourselves like houseplants
Yeah.
and make sure that we're getting those things that we need on a daily basis.
Yeah. And you said, those questions when you said, like, who am I?
Mhm.
Outside of these roles, and I'll say I forgot. I had lost myself. And I had to figure that out. And that helped, in therapy myself. And just because I'm a therapist, please don't think I have arrived and I no longer need it. Weekly, I'm going to sit on that couch, just as I invite y'all to find a therapist and sit on the couch so you can
Mhm.
do the work you need. You need it. You are worth the investment. Your mental health, your emotional health, you are worth the investment. And doing that, it helped me figure out, like, oh, I don't know who I am. And also doing this and getting out of the divorce, I had to figure out who I was as no longer married also. So there was just a whole lot of change. I didn't know who I was really. And those questions were fuel to me even writing. I've written three books, and one of them is a journal. It's a guided journal, and it has prompts where you're asking specific questions like that. Who am I? You set your timer for 5 minutes and just write. No judgment, just see what comes. If you
Mhm.
get stuck, it's okay. Just write, I'm stuck right now. That's who I am, right? And just continue and see what comes up. You're asking yourself these other questions of, like, who defines me? Where did I get this from? let me write a letter to my younger self or my older self, and just exploring again this relationship with self. Because again, I got so caught up in the do, in the everyone else, and my clients and my students and True, that I forgot about the relationship with self.
Mhm.
And really, as a caregiver, True depends on me. As a teacher, the class, yeah, they could find another teacher, but they depend on me.
Mhm.
My clients, yes, they could find another therapist, but they depend on me. So I'm the common denominator here. Like I
Mhm.
said, I'm the youngest and the only girl for my mom. For my dad, I'm his only. So my parents, they need something, they're gonna depend on me. So again, I'm the most important thing here, and not in a cocky way, but just I'm the
Right.
common denominator. I have to be the best self that I can be, not only for them, but I deserve to be the best just for me also.
Yes.
And relearning all of that and continuing to remind myself of that, because I can still forget in high moments of stress or where I feel like somebody else needs me more than I need me right now, which happens especially as a parent. But
Mhm.
having to then remember, like, okay, you got to pour in. You've been pouring out. Have you been pouring in? Because you can't pour from an empty cup. So you got to fill your cup first. It's like, oh,
That's
okay, I don't
very
have
good.
anything to fill. I don't have anything to pour anymore. So I got to refill myself. So, um, treating yourself like a house plant is key. Getting a therapist and also seeking community. If that is
Mhm.
just talking with your best friend, making sure that your best friend is healthy. Is my best friend, we've been friends for 20 years, and I'll say she's great and she's going to encourage me. She pushes me towards what God is saying. She'll be sad with me if it's a pity party, but she's going to say, okay, what did God tell you to do? Remember, you told me this. God said this. And she's going to remind me of those things and keep me going. But that piece, the community piece, was really hard for me also, of opening up and feeling like I'm supposed to be super mom. I'm supposed to figure this out and know it. I'm a therapist. I shouldn't have to, have to lean on other people, or they don't really want to hear my problems. People want me to hear their problems, and having to work through that too and say, no, I deserve to be supported also. I support all these people. And having people close to me say, like, I'm your friend. It's not fair if you don't allow me to show up for you. So, finding folks, like good communities to be a part of, like Living Chronic Faith and others, to really get that love and support that you're deserving to have.
That's so, so true. Those things are all essential. Self-care, therapy, coaching, whatever that support looks like for you, and then community. We are
Mhm.
meant to do life together. It's
Yeah.
not good for a man to be alone. And it's not good for women to be alone either. We
Right.
need to have, that's where, especially what you talked about, somebody that is going to point you back to God. Um, I have a very, very dear friend, and I refer to her as my lead me to the rock friend,
Yeah.
because no matter what is going on, you have people that you can call when you just want to be mad, and they're going to help you be mad. And
Mhm.
then you have people that you call when it's like, okay, I need a good dose of the truth. I need somebody to help me get on track. And that's that lead me to the rock friend that is always going to say, okay, yeah, but Jesus,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That is so powerful. And I think that that works in concert with therapy or with coaching or with that supportive relationship. Um, I think I probably say in every podcast episode, we're here for Jesus and therapy, because
Yes.
he gave us, people with that kind of wisdom to pour into us and to help us to really process through things in a healthy way. That we don't always have the perspective to do for ourselves.
Hmm.
And so I believe that God has given us therapists and counselors and coaches as a resource, and that we should fully embrace that our mental health needs to be maintained as much as our physical health.
Hmm.
We go to the dentist twice a year. We go to the eye doctor once a year. We go to the, primary care doctor at least once a year. But when it comes to mental health, we sometimes don't even acknowledge that that's a thing. And that might be the place we need to be spending most of our time,
Yeah.
you know, not because there's anything wrong,
Hmm.
but just because it's healthy to have a safe space where you can say, and some people say, well, I talk to my spouse, well, I talk to my this, I talk to my that. Listen, that may be the person you need to talk about that week.
Hmm.
And so it's just a healthy thing to have a priority of maintaining and managing your mental health care as well as you do your physical health care. And
Yes.
so that is my PSA. But I appreciate you sharing that and bringing that out because it is so important. So with all of the things that you deal with and all of the challenges that you have overcome and are still overcoming, what is the Bible verse that encourages you?
There are many, many, many. Um, I would say if I had to choose one, it would probably be Psalms. I'll do Psalms 23, which
Mm,
is common. And I love to do more of I love guided meditation. So I use Psalms 23 and I really like the Lord is leading me beside still waters. In my mind, I am picturing myself by that water. I am
mm,
picturing myself laying in them green pastures. I am picturing myself just in this like warm cocoon of protection, even though I'm in this dark shadow of death, and really allowing myself to relish in the presence of God, even in my visual space. And that has helped me and carried me through some of the hardest times where I felt the most vulnerable, the most impacted, the least peace in my life of just going there and saying, Lord, I know what the world is looking like right now, but your word is truth. Your word is what I can stand on. So I know that I lack nothing. I know I have nothing to fear. I know that you are with me. And I thank you.
mm. Amen.
Yeah.
That is so beautiful. And I love that you're talking about seeing yourself in the word, that this is
Mhm.
not something that is separate
Yeah.
from who we are. It's part of who we are, right? This is how God speaks to us. This is how he sees us.
Mhm.
We are his sheep. And I just shared this with someone recently. God has assumed, ooh, I get excited. God has assumed responsibility for our care. He
Yeah.
has assumed responsibility for sustaining us in every way. And where we sometimes miss the mark is when we feel like we have to do it. When we
Hmm.
feel like we have to make the moves and make the decisions and make things happen. And God is going, I'll let you do it if you want to do it, but I've taken responsibility for you. I gave you my name and it's all on me.
Yeah.
If you'll let me do it, if you'll just trust me with it, I've got all the answers. And so that's kind of what I take away from what you shared regarding Psalm 23, that it's this feeling of contentment, peace, safety,
Yeah.
and that's beautiful. And I love that you find that in the Word of God. It's
Yeah.
there for us.
Hmm.
Wow, this conversation has been so uplifting and so beautiful. Thank you for sharing just your experience and your journey with us, and for all the nuggets and the pearls of wisdom that you gave us. I will never forget about the wise mind, and that's going to go with me a long way. So
Yeah.
thank you for that. Um, Before we wrap up, I just want to share this and I want to brag on you a little bit. In addition to being a mom and a licensed marriage and family therapist, you are also a best-selling author. Tell us just a little bit about this and the others.
Yes. So A Seat on the Couch was a series that I debuted in 2022. And the idea behind A Seat on the Couch is I'm seeing my clients, I'm in my private practice, and I'm like, Lord, I know that there are people, especially in the African American community, that need support, that have just generational trauma, who have just seen things that need healing and restoration. And I know they would never pick up the phone and call me and say, hey, can I have a session? how am I going to reach these people, Lord? Like, your people need help and they're just on my heart. And the Lord was like, write a book. And that's what I did. Yeah, So Maya's story is the first in the A Seat on the Couch series. And she is a woman who you get to walk alongside with, and just seeing her journey, how she's overcoming some of the anxiety and some of the traumas that she's endured in her life. And Mike is second in that series, and you get to walk alongside him and just see how he's trying to come back to the community with a different head after spending some time in jail. And he's now raising his niece and trying to do things a little different because he got this baby he needs to take care of now. So he's in this caregiver role and trying to figure it out the best way he can. And you kind of get to walk with him and see his journey. And there's more to come in that series actually later on this year. So I would suggest you all, you might want to follow along, get on my email list so you could be the first to see what's coming next. I know there's going to be two. I don't know which one the Lord is going to allow me to go with first. So we'll see. But there's two in line that should be back to back, hopefully by the end of this year, both fingers crossed for that. And then the third book is the Journey to Self, which is the journal with the written prompts. And you have prompts and reflections. I believe there's 30 of them in that book. So yeah, those are the three books that I have so far, and more to come.
Incredible, and congratulations on those. How do people get a copy of these books?
Yeah, so you can find them they're all on Amazon, and you can also find them on my website at tbtherapy.com.
T as in Tom, B as in boy, therapy.com. Listen, one thing I can say about this is that it's a very accessible read. It's interesting to follow the journey, as you said. There are some heavy themes, but it's done in a way that is conversational. It's easy to read, it's easy to follow, and it's just you end up experiencing this journey along with them, and also seeing the process to resolution, and just navigating. Again, that word navigating. And I think that that's one of the things that was so powerful for me, is really kind of realizing everybody's navigating.
Mm.
We're all on a journey and none of them are the same. And I think that sometimes we look around and we think, oh, this person has it all together and that person's doing that. And I wish I were where they are, and not really understanding or knowing or being aware of how they got to where they are, or what it cost them, or the areas where they're still struggling, and just recognizing that everybody is on a journey. And I pray that that helps us to kind of give ourselves some more grace, but also to give other people grace, because we're all dealing with something.
That's it.
Wow. So tell us one more time your website and how people can get in contact. You mentioned an email list. Can they do that from your website as well?
Yes.
Okay, so tell us again.
The website is TB, so my initials tbtherapy.com. And there you can join my email list. You can read a little bit more about me. You can also see the books that are available there for purchase.
Awesome. I pray that everybody kind of gets plugged in. Definitely purchase the books and get on the list for the upcoming books. I can't wait to read them. And if anything, just really kind of take away those lessons that we've gotten today, the wise mind, the house plant, the making sure that you're pouring back into yourself so that you can be what you need to be for those that you serve and those that you care for. Tiana, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing so generously of yourself and just giving us a window into your life and all the caregiving and the momming things, but the life things as well. This has been a beautiful conversation, and I really, really appreciate you.
Thank you. I'm so appreciative of the space. So.
Oh my goodness. And thanks to everybody for joining us for this episode of Living Chronic Faith Podcast. We'll see you next time. Hey, thanks so much for listening. If you want to stay up to date on what's happening in the LCF community, or for more faith first chronic diagnosis content, please visit our website at livingchronicfaith.com. And while you're there, consider registering for membership free of charge. Also, check us out on Instagram and YouTube at Living Chronic Faith. Be sure to follow and subscribe. Remember that I'm praying for you. Yes, you. And until next time, always expect great things. Talk to you soon.